Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to FM23 Newton Heath, episode 37. We're going to wrap up the season and try to get through the off season within this episode and see what we can do about getting into next season, possibly as well as we prepare for League 2. But first, we need to wrap up the National League journey that we've just been on, our end of season review. Our signing of the season was our new goalkeeper, Heath. 49 appearances for him, managed to get one assist, 7.14 rating, was a huge upgrade at the goalkeeper position after we really struggled to find anything. It was one of our strongest positions in the early waves, but then after that, we never really could find an upgrade for a couple of years, and then finally we landed Heath and got somebody who was quite a bit better than the previous ones. Ollie Palmer didn't do great, but he just about got a 7.0 rating. He did get 10 goals. Just wasn't the best fit for the system. I thought a player of his quality would do more, but system matters. System matters a lot. In the end, the final match actually was a loss. I had some squad rotation, some lower end squad rotation, and we were on the road at a Borehamwood side that was desperate to secure their playoff spot. So they went out full bore, gave it everything they had, and meanwhile I gave it less than, and it ended up in a 3-1 loss. So we finished the season much the way we started. We had a couple losses relatively early in the year. That previous last loss was October the 11th. We got all the way to the end of the season before we saw a third one. Plus 61 goal differential and 101 points overall, though, is a hell of a season. 29, 14, and 3 is fantastic. But thanks to Eastleigh and literally no one else, it was not quite down to the wire. But, it was still tense at times on whether we would get the job done because they were just winning and winning and winning like crazy themselves. And, only 19 non-win results and more of those draws than losses. Yes, we did the same sort of thing. We only had 2 wins more than them, so it wasn't like we were miles ahead. We were miles ahead of Notts County and everybody else, so you felt comfortable there. But because there was only the single automatic promotion spot, it left you going, hey, what's it going to be? What's going to happen here? Thanks to the FA Cup, our broadcast revenue went up by 100K. The corporate went up by a little bit. Competition prize money was virtually identical. Match day commercial, actually a little bit less than what we had in the previous season, a couple million less to be exact. Reputation, still half star, but there is a key here. We went from obscure to local, which means we're almost up to a 1-star reputations. We are approaching that, and we'll see if the turnover into the next season, we see a bump as we climb the ladder and as we are officially awarded the title. It'd be nice. Last we checked, we were at about $12.99 just a couple weeks ago. But again, that was pre being declared champion, and I don't know how much of a boost you actually get from getting that, but you would think that should amount to a pretty healthy boost to the reputation. Despite the overwhelming success of Shaq Ford's season, which of course didn't finish the way it was going, right? He was doing so amazingly well, so far ahead of the rest of the league in terms of goals, average rating, player of the match, and then he got hurt. And he missed an amount of time that by time he was healthy, for one, the getting healthy part meant partial games, and he wasn't scoring in those until he did. Like once he broke free, he started scoring again there at the end of the season at his normal rate as he had before. But he won Player of the Month first 2 months of the season. He finished, I believe, second in the award or third in the award, and in the third month of the season, and then he was hurt. And then Ollie Palmer went and won Player of the Month in his stead. But that injury, I think, cost Shaq Ford a lot. And will he or won't he win Player of the Season for the league? I don't know. The fans' player of the season ended up being Charlie Wilson. So Ford didn't even manage to do that. Wasn't even seen as the best player on our own team. 10 player of the match awards, 33 goals for him, 15 assists for Ollie Tanner, by the way. Compared to a normal year, the timeline was actually a little bit barren this year, and really only three key things, upsetting Northampton and Reading, and then winning the National League. Updated all-time best 11. Ollie Tanner, picked of the new players being inducted to that list. Harrison Neal, Whitehall, Pike, Tunnicliffe, Donasian were the other new entries. And then, of course, Harrison Neal, now gone from the club. So he won't stay on there for very long, you would think. Our signing of the season, Kiggy, doesn't make the list yet. For now, Clayton backs up Killip in that. So the first two goalkeepers we went through. Our third goalkeeper, he's going to have to wait his turn. Will he still be the starter next year as we go through turnover for the new season? We won't automatically be looking for a new goalkeeper, but I'll certainly be looking to upgrade anywhere that we can, because budget-wise, we have no problem. Absolutely no problem. We've got something like a 200 million... No, that's not right. 20 something million dollar payroll for next season. We're at 2 million, with only about 1.5 of that still on guaranteed contracts for next year. So we've got a good, $500,000 freeing up, but we have 20 million to spare, or 18 million to spare anyway. We're not getting anywhere near what that capacity is, not at this level. We'll get our guys and we'll do good deals. But now that we are getting into the league proper, we may, for the first time, actually start spending some money in the transfer market. I have yet to do so. We have always, each and every time, signed every last player we've had on a free. That could change in the coming season. In the data hub, the seasonal analysis, our general performance, you can see the goals per game, the XG per game, right at the top, the XG especially, right at the top. Conceded per game, we did better than most. We had a good defense. Our XG against, also up there, or is that the opposite? Did we give up more goals? We'll have to go check the stats. But our shots per game, top of the league. Passing percentage was good. Shot percentage, tackling percentage, all better than average. Does look like we gave up a fair bit of goals, according to that. Tackles were low. Clearances and fouls were very low this year. The entire league got a boost in their attendance. So one byproduct of what we are doing is that we are raising every team's attendance, because the away support is huge. We definitely attempted to control possession, but it wasn't all about it. It was what we do with it. And so you can see we are actually only third on the charts for average possession. Headers, we were only 16th, so we were on the lower end of the league in that one. But we won a majority of our headers. We were good with the ball when we needed to be. We just didn't play it through the air as much as a lot of other teams. 10th in yellow cards. Tied for third with 4 red cards on the season. Well ahead of everyone else with 89 goals, 16 clear of Halifax, 5 from corners. One of the nice things is our expected goals over performance was only 3. So we only scored 3 goals more than what was expected. Here's that breakdown right there. So 89 goals scored on the season. The expected, the XG was 86.1. So it wasn't just that we outscored everyone. It was the XG, because you could see, a team like Borehamwood, they outscored their XG massively. They did a lot of things they weren't supposed to do, where, not too many clubs actually did poor in that department. We were very much average. It was just we were very good in terms of the XG side, and you can see how clear we were. Eastleigh, also a pretty creative team. They were similar to us in that, Barnet is the first one that, starts to actually exceed their number. And then Rochdale, the club that's going to be very disappointed in their 7th. Barnet did a lot better than expected, but Rochdale did a lot worse. So that's two teams going kind of the opposite direction for you. Though, in the standings, it looks like their defense totally opposite of each other. Non-penalty goals expected was 80 for us. And our per 90 for that was 1.75. Penalties were definitely not our friend this season or anything. We were in the lower end of the league, or right about mid-table anyway, with 7 penalties. That's not what made the difference. We just saw what did. We scored 6 of the 7 that we took this season. Here you can really see where we excel over everybody else. We were 10% better than anybody else, and when we're talking about 27 and 17 being the top 2 in the league, 10% is a massive margin over Notts County and Barrow for our cross completion percentage. And it wasn't because of it was a small number. We completed more crosses by anybody else by nearly 80. Goals from corner kicks, just average. One of those common things about FM that people constantly complain about is how you have to micromanage corner kicks. I don't. It could ultimately come out to be 2 to 3 more goals a season for us. If I micromanage that, really, that's a lot of time and effort over a few goals. I'd like to have those few goals, but I'm not desperate enough for those few goals to go in and do the micromanaging necessary. I have a fairly generic tactic. I do not switch it up every single match to fit players. Only a single direct free kick goal for us this year, with a few indirect free kicks. That's a very small quantity. Set pieces were not our friend this year. We weren't awful, but we were definitely not good. Very good at connecting up our passes, but still not crazy dominant, just really good compared to most. 3rd in passing overall and in number of passes completed. But where we, again, dominate the league is the chances created. It's the right pass at the right time. 197 chances. And that also resulted in a lot of extra shots, 759 of them. And, of course, where it certainly didn't amount to everything, but one of the key parts about our tactic is working the ball inside. Now, where occasionally the midfielders, your Whitehall, your Sarcevic, they're going to have that longer range shot where they come in late and you get that pullback ball to them that results in a shot, and they would score some of those. And of course, those were the brilliant highlights that we would see. But for most of the time, we're working the ball inside. And so we're shooting from a bit closer range. So it's not only that we outshot everybody, but we had a much better chances, partially because of how we were setting those shots up, where we were taking those shots from. We also had the most on target, though the percentage was only 6th best. So our finishing is good, but it's definitely not amazing. Conversion rate was 9th best at 11%. This was one area that really surprised me. As many times as we were through, as many times as we were beating the defense and getting into very dangerous positions, we drew some of the fewest number of fouls in the entire league, all the way down to 19th with 624 fouls. That's it. I mean, we're 23 from bottom of the league. We're 140 from the top of the league. That says a lot, because we seem to play pretty clean this year. We didn't commit too much, yet we still got a lot of yellow cards, got a lot of red cards, and then didn't go to the penalty spot. Didn't get fouls going our way. And this is usually where you tend to see more fouls, right? You make dribbles. You advance the ball with your feet. somebody comes in, takes your legs out, that's a foul. That's one of the more common areas. Or you make the dribble to pass somebody and they grab your arm. There's your yellow card. So to be towards the upper end of the league, outside of Eastleigh being way ahead, you can see where their dominance came from. It was with their feet in possession of individual players. After that, it gets fairly close. I mean, these two are a little bit further ahead of the chasing pack, but we are in that chasing pack just behind those two. We're very much in the upper end of the league, and yet couldn't draw fouls. Oh, there's a new one that I hadn't seen before. High-intensity sprints. So this is up there. We were second in the league, pretty close to the top on that one. And again, here is where that dominance is showing that I was just talking about. It's not just about completing passes. It's not just about making a run. It's getting it into the final third. And into the final third, we were dominant there. We had the most final third passes by far. On the defensive side of things, we were the number one defense. So it's weird to see the XG matrix on that and the goals part low, mid, upper end. So we were good in some areas, weak in others. But with us and Eastleigh on top in terms of defense, now you see why the two of us were right at the top of the league. Expected goals against, again leading the way in that one with a 34.03. Conceding just 2 corners and 1 direct free kick and 3 indirect free kicks. So outside of a difference of 3 in corners, so we were a +3 in corners, we were equal on direct and indirect free kicks, give and take. Now, allowed from corners right at the top of the league. Direct free kicks, just 4 teams managing to give up nothing, and we were among another small set that gave up just 1. Indirect free kicks, 3 of them. That's actually towards the bottom end of the league, but it's definitely not like Altrincham, who gave up 10, with the next worst being 5. Shutouts, top of the league with 26, 5 clear of the next. Fouls made, 8th. That was that tricky part for me. Our tackling percentage is high. We'll see that soon. It might have been highest in the league. And the overall number of tackles that we go for wasn't crazy. It's going to be the lower end of the league. So lower end of number of attempts, highest in completion of attempts, yet we get called for more fouls. Just where's the math in that one? Where does the math lead you? It's certainly deceiving on how that worked out. Tackles won, 18th. But here is that tackle percentage. It is first. It is first in the league. We had the highest ratio of completed tackles, meaning we didn't even attempt that, meaning we missed fewer tackles than anybody else. And yet we still end up towards the top end of the league in fouls. We saw it in the first couple of seasons. We're still seeing it. It's not as bad as it used to be, but we're still seeing it. So I'm not sure why it is that our team is cautioned more frequently, especially when we are not diving in on our tackles. Blocks, ouch, low, just 178, 22nd in the league. Winning possession back, again, just 22nd in the league. Clearances, 23rd. Interceptions, 19th. Penalties conceded, 6 of them. We had, 7 ourselves, so just about balanced in that. But when you're the best offensive team and the best defensive team, to have those be even, to only get 7, to give up 6, when you're the best in both categories, And like I said, the best at tackling, it's a strange one. We face the fewest shots by a decent amount. Here's where we do well. Opposition passes per defensive action, meaning how many passes can the other team string together before we are making a play on the ball with our defense. Eastleigh and us are at the top of the league. We were at 3.3, and that's where that key thing happens. Here's another sign of why I'm confused, right? We committed more fouls than we even had attempted tackles. Eastleigh, they're 100 below. Carlisle is 250 below that mark. Everybody is below that mark. Every single team. There's only a couple that are even remotely close to even. But here we are with more fouls than tackles. It's only by one, but it's still more fouls than tackles. Even the worst teams in the league. Okay, there are two teams. Dorking and wait, what was it? Feld? Damn it, I forgot. The two worst teams. The worst teams in the opposition passes per defensive action, both exceeding 4. Dorking just above, more fouls than tackles. And Field was pretty bad, about 70 off. So 2 teams besides us had a ratio like that. So 3 teams out of the entire league. It doesn't add up how we are getting punished so often, more so than anybody else, right? The 2 teams that are terrible in defense were the only ones. But the best defensive team in the league was punished as severely as them. Or almost as severely as those 2. And more than everybody else in the league. For me, that's the biggest question that I want answered as I go forward. How can I stop getting us punished so frequently? Is the double pivot why that happens? I mean, we do get a few more yellow cards in the middle. We commit those professional fouls. But maybe that's also why we're giving up so many fewer shots. We know that if it's a dangerous position, we have defensive mids that are intelligent enough to say, I need to commit a professional foul. This guy's going to potentially score. Instead of just, oops, here's your open shot. Here's your chance. Oh no, they scored. Well, at least I didn't get a yellow. We've got guys that are going to take one for the team. For me, that's the only answer I can come up with that makes a lot of sense as to how or why that would be. Why we are cautioned so much more comparatively to almost the entirety of the rest of the league, outside of the 2 worst defenses out there, ratio-wise. Now, if you look up and down the league, almost every team had one sellout. Most every team. That one sellout, that was against us. That was their home match against us. Barrow, the only squad that managed 2. So that means they got one against us and one against somebody else. But they have a very small stadium. In terms of the overall average attendance, of course we were at the top of the league. But again, for everybody else, they only got one match where we sold many additional tickets for them. For us, it was every match, 95%. No sellouts though. We are playing at a low level. We do have a low reputation. So even setting it up the way we did, we still can't quite get the sellout, even though we are supposed to have it every match. But it makes sense that we don't quite get it. I think as we hit Premier League, we would sell out every match, even without a top reputation. Like I said, I still have yet to spend money on a player, and so you can see that across the league, 12 teams actually had a net spend. It wasn't much, but they spent more than they brought in. Not the case for us, as we brought in 17,000. It's pennies, chump change. It's nothing, but we did bring in some money. Carlisle, meanwhile, though, they made nearly 3 million, 2.73. Well, this is a surprise. This is a legitimate surprise. I didn't pay attention to the salaries this year. I knew that last year when we were in the National League North that we were outspending everybody else. I did not know that we weren't top of the league in salary. Notts County is by a fair margin. I mean, we're nearly $500,000 behind them. So that was interesting. That's an interesting discovery. Quite surprised by that. Our 1.56 million, clearly, we were spending some money, but it wasn't like I thought it was. I knew we could have spent significantly more, but why would you bother? But we put together that squad for still less than Notts County, and in terms of the net spend on the market, the difference between us is, it's 55K. It's 65K difference in our favor, plus the difference in salary. Carlisle, though, they've got some salary, but they certainly took care of that. Their salary for the year at 1.5 million, with bringing in 2.7, they saved. They spent virtually nothing. They made 1.3 million for other expenses this year, and salary at this level is by far, actually every level, salary is by far the biggest outgoing expense for every professional soccer club around the world, football club. I know. I don't want to break down the individual player stats as much this year, but let's go ahead and take a look at where the individuals performed, at least from an overview perspective. Shaq Ford's lead disintegrated. He was very much caught by Jamie Sewell of FC Halifax. They were tied with 27 goals apiece, but fewer appearances for Shaq Ford means he is the Golden Boot winner here in this league, unless Jamie Sewell in the playoffs goes and scores. I believe FC Halifax is one of the playoff clubs, so they will have some additional games, and I think we're going to lose that Golden Boot likely as a result. Shaq Ford did get himself caught offside a fair few times, third in the league with just over 100 times that he was caught offside, but still, that was one of the things that helped, was he wasn't constantly offside, and he was making those runs behind. That was where he got so many of his attempts from, and I think that was kind of the key difference between him and Ollie Palmer, is those through balls were where we were so prolific, and Palmer just didn't have the speed to do such a thing. Better individual player, quality-wise, but doesn't have the pace. Ford has the pace and enough finishing about him to score a lot of goals. Open play, key passes per 90 minutes. Here is that domination of our midfield. Ola, Tanner, first and second. Hercules and Neal, fourth and fifth. Dominating the league in open play, key passes. Those through balls. And most of those are through balls for Ford, or for one another, or for overlapping fullbacks. Expected assists, Ollie Tanner, who did end up with 15. His expected was 14.64. Ola up there in fifth. Progressive passes, Tunnicliffe, Neal, right near the top, or at top of the league. Team goals, yeah, that was all us. Goals per 90. Timmy Abraham did a little bit better than Shaq Ford. And games won. We have the top in that category as well, with Wilson, Lapala, but Wilson having the most. We did not make the top list for tackles won, but we were on top of shutouts. Tanner was second in the league in assists, so he actually ended up with 13 league assists and 2 non-league competition assists, with Ola at 10. Oh, love to see it. A goalkeeper. Well, goalkeepers should have very high pass completion percentage, especially depending on how you play. Well, there's a stat for you. 19 appearances for league leader of Scunthorpe's Shelby, with 20 goals allowed. Heggie finishes second with fewest goals allowed on the season, but he does it with more than twice the number of appearances at a 0.55 allowed per 90 goal ratio. I was surprised that the board was delighted about our goal of not signing players over the age of 30, as we definitely did sign a couple. We did sign some under 23s, but it too was only a couple, and they were only pleased about that one, while delighted about this. So our new 5-year plan, of course, has changed drastically, as they were only looking to get into League 2 in, I think it was a 3-year period. We did it in the first year. Now, for the end of next season, they want us to avoid relegation from League 2. I don't think that's going to be a problem whatsoever. We're going to have training facilities and youth facilities improvement complete. Club, oh wow, okay, additional plans. So it's still out there, folks. It is still out there. Club ownership is still questioned. So we have a 1-year plan right now. That is interesting, for sure. We now have Wilson and Pierre as team leaders, Ford, Pike, Tanner, Sarcevic, and Smallwood as the highly influential players. We've definitely developed a good, strong club atmosphere. The locker room obviously has very good atmosphere. So it looks like they want us to avoid a relegation battle, which means that's where we want to have that conversation. No? Oh. They're pessimistic, as in they think we can do better, or they want to do more. Well, please the crowd. There you go. So they think we're facing a relegation battle. I don't think that's going to be the case at all. On the injury table, Donacien, of course, out for 3 months. Luckily, we had Brooks. Brooks ended up playing more than Donacien did over the course of the season. But they ended up splitting time for the most part. A lot of guys out for a month to a month and a half, but many of them were backup younger players. But Lapalabai, Tanner, Sarcevic, Pike, all missing a little over a month. That's quite a few starters that missed time. We had a decent amount of squad rotation going throughout the year. Whitehall also missing a few weeks. I was surprised that Shaq Ford, it was only 12 days that he missed, but regaining his fitness and getting back to 90 minutes took probably a month after that pulled hamstring. So there was a lot of take it easy, and he got his 40 appearances, but that was the period where he struggled, was getting back to fitness. And it was also a really key time, even though he only missed 12 days. Like, there was 3 or 4 matches during that stretch that he missed entirely. Can't vote for our own guys. 4 of them are here for National League Player of the Season. Wilson, Tanner, Lapalabai, and Shaq Ford, all on this one. I would hope that Shaq Ford is the favorite, but we'll see. Timmy Abraham, in terms of the goal scoring, those two dominating. In terms of goal scoring and goal creation, Ollie Tanner would be the obvious choice in that department, as he was the most prolific in both. If you're looking at a defensive performance, Denzei had a 7.21. Golding had a 7.28, and as fullback contributed, or I don't know whether he was playing fullback or if he was playing center back for those. 3 goals for center back Maghoma of Eastleigh. Charlie Wilson, though, best rating of all of them. So if you're looking at defenders, he also did manage to score a goal as well. And a lot of defenders on the list. So surprising number of defenders, with over half of the list coming from the defensive group, and Wilson is probably the favorite of that group. So we've got a decent chance of somebody coming away with that award. I would say the most likely besides us to claim it has got to be Abraham, though. Tax bill is roughly 20% of the profit we made over the last year with a $5 million tax bill. That's a lot. That is a lot of money, but there's plenty left. The club did just fine over the last year. The scouting budget of $449K, I've turned us up from just England scouting up to UK and Ireland. Thinking about going all the way up to Europe wide. We can't quite afford world scouting just yet, but I think we're gonna get there soon enough. For the moment, we'll try UK and Ireland and see what that kind of turns up for us. We may turn this up sooner rather than later to Europe wide. To really know what scouting options we want to go with, you need to know the rule set of the league you're heading into. And of course, the UK has been an evolving set of rules in recent years, largely thanks to Brexit. So checking in on the Sky Bet League 2 transfer window squad registration, we have to have 8 players trained at the club. So we're starting to fall into that period now that we're into the league. Where we stand on that one should be relatively good, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. We could struggle to put together 8. For one, we've had nothing coming out of the youth ranks, and we've only even been together for 3 years. So I might actually really hurt on the squad registration side to come up with 8 players and hang on to some guys. I might need to go back into my squad here before the expiration of contracts and re-sign some guys just to have them on that list. But as for the transfer and registration rules, under 24 players must be offered similar terms before the third Saturday in May. Okay. Or 4 days after their last match in the season. Otherwise, no compensation will be due if they sign for other clubs. So after the third Saturday in May, we can start offering players out. So that's good, as there's definitely some targets that I want to sign. And then loan rules, maximum of 4 players allowed on long-term loans for the same club in a season. Players may be allowed to play for the parent club's reserve team whilst on loan. Here's the work permit rules. That's the big one, right? What can we get after? Transfer for foreign player without a current permit. Point system based on the following criteria: international appearances, league appearances. So league points awarded depending on the reputation of the league. So we might be able to get points. It might not just have to be international appearances. It can be if they're playing in a larger league. Club continental competition appearances. More points depending on how far the club progressed. Club league position and league reputation. So club league position. Is that our reputation? I don't know. If you're higher in the league, you can sign somebody over being lower in the league. That's what that sounds like. But league reputation. So being in League 2 or the league that we're signing them from, on whether they would get. I guess that would be the current league reputation, meaning League 2 definitely has a lower reputation than League 1 or the Championship, and certainly than the Premier League. Days to wait for the next application is 120. Club must pay an administration fee of $23K upon application. The fee is no problem for our club. Nations treated as non-foreign. All nations in UK and Ireland, and that's why I initially just turned it up to UK and Ireland. All overseas territories act. Territories Act nations. I don't know who the Overseas Territories Act are, but I suppose territories, right? So British territories overseas, potentially. And then players from the European Union will be deemed non-foreign as long as their current contract starts. It's 5 years past that point. We don't have a current contract, so that's not going to help us anymore. Financial rules. Financial fair play comes into effect in the league. Salary cap. Payroll budget is limited to 50% of turnover. No problem there. Our turnover is huge. Contract renewals. Okay, that's the same one we just saw already. And financial fair play rules. Teams competing Sky Bet League 2 must not spend more than 55% of projected income. So this is where our team is going to be able to do more than a lot of other teams, is we have the income base. And that's what's going to make this playthrough easier in a way. And very different from other playthroughs. We started with nothing. No reputation, no facilities, no players. And it might have been a hard start, but once you got past that, the financial clout that we have has really helped. But the one big thing, minimum stands, okay, we're good on that one. Terracing is permitted. Grass pitches only. All right. The one thing that's going to be a challenge for us is the minimum of 8 players trained at the club. We'll have to check in on that one. But that is going to do it for this episode and this season. We wrap things up. I don't know if all the leagues are done just yet. I know they're not quite there. We are down to Eastleigh and Notts County for the second promotion spot. But League 2 is also still ongoing. Accrington, Stanley, Crawley, and Swindon all promoted, with Doncaster, Exeter, Shrewsbury, and Newport County still in the playoffs. Sutton and Stevenage are going down to make way for us. Wrexham, after back-to-back promotions, 2 in a row might have been a little too fast, as they are facing relegation. Well, they are being relegated from League 1 back down to League 2, so we will be playing against Wrexham down there. Colchester, Port Vale, Portsmouth all coming down. Going up, Preston, Cambridge already guaranteed with 4 teams left in the playoff. And the championship, Nottingham Forest, Watford heading up. 4 still in the playoff there, with Plymouth, Birmingham, Salford going down. And finally, in the Premier League, it's Chelsea on top. The league not yet over. They've still got a couple, 2 to 3 matches left to play. Man City hot on their heels with a game in hand. Tottenham, Arsenal in the other top 4 of the European places, with Wolves and United in 5th and 6th. 5 points clear of those behind them, though Liverpool in 7th have only played 34 matches. Down at the bottom in the Premier League, it's Norwich, it's Burnley, and West Brom. And even though the season is not yet done, the 3 of them have already been relegated. And now that is going to do it for this episode and this season. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.